There's been this meme going around Portuguese, like Brazilian Instagram of someone I think from like a Candomblé or Umbanda temple saying like the translation is basically like when you want to go into initiate into these traditions in order to learn how to incorporate your spirit, and incorporate meaning like mount or get possessed by, but instead you end up incorporating the role of the butcher for
Hmm.
like 6 hours or something, and that's so true.
Been there, done that.
It's yeah, especially you. I think you're often on the butcher duty.
Yeah.
Um, but it's kind of like it goes back to one of our elders that we've praised quite often and kind of mentioned obliquely on the show. I believe also with our episode with our Tata, where he was once asked, he's had a tremendous experience in Candomblé and in various other Afro-Brazilian traditions, and he was once asked, like, how do you know that someone who joins any tradition, let alone these ones, like is gonna like be a good fit for it. Like they're gonna
Hmm.
become a good sorcerer. They're gonna learn the magic correctly and learn how to communicate the spirits effectively. Like how do you know they're gonna learn correctly? And his answer was and remains, can they pick up a broom and sweep?
Hmm. Can they
And
pick up a mop and clean?
yeah, can they make endless cafecito with
Hmm.
the mocha pot? Well, it's the very basics of taking care of space and land. And realizing that not like it's not going to be so intense as you think it is. Memorizing
Hmm.
herb lists, learning how to speak to certain spirits, none of it is quite so emboldening and terrifying as it could be if you have initiative.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. And one of the things when, you're living in a communal space where it's, 15, 20, 30 people even at an event where you'll have maybe 2 nights of like really hard ritual, you realize for 8 days you are doing prep to make sure those things go perfectly well. And what that entails is okay, 30 people have just been in the same room having dinner. Do five of them know to mop up after the fact,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
when people are tracking in dirt from doing herb walks in the woods and harvesting the 121 different things you need for that night. Do they know to sweep the floor of the dust on people's shoes? It's like all these different things that acknowledge that relationship between the land, the sacred space of the compound as both working space and sacred space. The lineage in terms of when people walk in the door, are they like, what the fuck is going on here? Or are they like, okay, this is a very tightly run ship and people know what they're doing. Um, and in some ways in community, it's about that impression, it's about that space, but same applies to spirits too.
Yeah, absolutely. Get back to the basics, y'all.
It's true.
Sweep first, juju later, and then
Hmm.
juju again, so you can sweep
Exactly.
again.
Get those dishes out your sink before you start casting spells. Be not alarmed at the frightful howls which you may hear. It's Sfinga.
Hey, yeah.
And back to basics key. That's right. Are we bringing cleaning supplies? Are we bringing compounds that degrease a repetition stove to the temple compound key today?
Oh my God. Actually, I'm trying to think of like bringing all of the empty propane tanks to the Home Depot key.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bringing the water jugs along with them, key.
Yeah, it's for the water filter. Yeah, 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 absolutely.
Buying herbs from that Home Depot's garden section to run the tradition key.
Uh,
Bringing honored guest of the podcast, Gary Noriyuki, to that hardware store to get energy drinks and food from the restaurants nearby.
this is what happens when you have your car.
It's true. It's
Yeah,
true.
yeah,
My chariot.
you not your fucking wagon or
It's true.
well, I do think this is a long time coming. Clearly, I mean, yes, I'm back. I'm back home. Thank you all for your patience as I've had to take some time to respond to DMs of all kinds and schedule my backlog of clients. I really appreciate that. I'm gonna actually take a little bit of a break from divination as of this episode airing.
Mhm.
But I'll be back in a couple weeks. So I scheduled everyone. If you were supposed to meet with me, you've already met with me by the time this episode comes out. But I really appreciate everyone's patience as I've been doing all kinds of juju and training with Key in person. So you heard us record a lot of things for the Patreon bonus stuff with a menagerie of sounds in the background. We'll leave it at that.
Mhm.
Yeah, good old. But yeah, thank you all so much for joining us again.
Mhm. Yeah, thank you all for coming back. And if you're interested, I happen to have openings. Come hang out.
That's true. The beans may close, but the Linneman cards are open.
Very true. Including those curious to learn Letterman. I'm happy just to shoot the shit.
Yeah, yeah. Learn how to read it yourself from the man.
Yeah, absolutely.
The B stands for blaue Eule key.
This is true. This is the secret B of this episode.
hmm
Um, Favorite deck being the Blauoile or Blue Owl Letterman. What are the goats?
hmm
But yeah, speaking of the goats, remember to check us out
We
on
we can't be the
I
goats.
I love a smooth transition.
I, they get
um,
rockier every time, my friend.
mhm. If you consider us a goat or are rapidly considering us a goat, because Sultrama Bali Preto the man Noche Kalunga. Fucking hell. For like the five people in our Discord who got that, Sally. Anyway, remember to check us out on patreon.com/slash the frightful howls. We have a bonus episode every month curated by and for our patrons, a Discord server where the five people who got that joke are present. Salt, who is not with us today because he is cultivating on top of a celestial mountain and will hopefully be back for the next episode, has a fantastic monthly almanac complete with any measure of astrological elections, timings, auspicious dates, voice of the spirits, all that good shit. So go check it out. It's worth its weight in gold. We also have a monthly live book club where we discuss a text of your choosing. We have show notes for every episode, and we have a whole tier for monthly group spell work from the three of us on your behalf. And while we're still keeping house, remember to give us a like, rating, and review on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever it is you might be listening to us. Hopefully soon on shortwave radio as my machinations come to fruition. It helps us fight the damage of the algorithm, and on a personal level, we really appreciate it.
hmm
Helps us grow our audience, helps us grow our show, and is one of the best ways, even if you can't kick us some cash on Patreon to support what we're doing and put out new episodes. Furthermore, check out our services. I offer personalized coaching in magic and mediumship, sorcery for hire, readings, and custom talismans, oils, and tools. As was mentioned earlier, I've also started to open up to consultations about Lenormand. I am always so awkward when I'm like, oh, I can teach people how to do this in the way that I do it because I'm like, I don't know, I just do my shit and I can fill you in. So if you
hmm
want to talk, let's talk cards and get up to speed.
hmm
So Sfinga offers Balkan Fotomancy readings. As she mentioned, she's taking a little break. So come on my way. Well, when she's back, hit her up. She's the best. Incomparable diviner and worth her weight in gold. Then Salt's books are closed, but keep an eye out for that monthly astrological almanac on Patreon. Last but not least, hit us up on social media. Sfinga's at Dragon Cunning. Salt is at Salt CNC. That's the letters CANDC. And I am at barnowl.key.
Actually, if you guys have been doing really well with Excising Demiurge, thank you so much for all the good likes and 5-star reviews. It's been fucking awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We appreciate each and every one and see when it happens. So keep it coming.
Yeah. Well, Key, this is your episode idea. This one's one of yours.
Mhm.
And I'm excited to hear you walk us through it because like a back to the basics is something that's been on the request file. We keep every request from our patrons for like what next episode they want. And sometimes we shuffle them around based on kind of our availability and like what guests we're scheduling, what research episodes we have kind of in the back burner that we're continuing to cultivate material for. But this one,
Mhm.
it was a long time coming. And I know we've talked about doing like a magic 101 101 in terms of what it is to actually get your start as a sorcerer. And we're still
Mhm.
gonna do that for sure. This one's like a you're already a sorcerer. And so
That's right.
how do you how do you maintain it?
Yeah,
Mhm.
we are going a little bit out of order today,
Mhm.
with the 101, 201, because a lot of our listeners know some stuff, know what they're doing for the most part, but often are questioning like, hey, what do I do next? What's good? What's the vibe? Um,
We're going like the Golden Dawn gradation of episode.
oh, fucking hell. That we are. So, welcome everybody,
hmm
to Arte Malku.
No, no.
All right, True North for this episode.
Oh
Such an
no.
asshole. Love you guys. All right,
Says the
so
person who did a DKME episode.
very true.
And
uh,
for the record, folks, after that episode, Alice started like haunting Key like visibly.
yeah, that's very true.
Like
I'd
right when he thought he was done with it and that was his love letter to it, they came crawling back.
hmm. Oh, fucking hell. Yeah, she's out there. She continues to be out there, and we out here even. So expect more to come. But
She's like, I am her. I will continue to be her.
Mhm. Like I'm every woman. I'm like, okay.
Work.
Anyway, Selby.
Yeah, what a fucking pomagere that is.
Very
But yeah,
true.
but I'm excited about this. I think it's great to have a little episode on dealing with the choice paralysis of just how many options there are. We do live in the golden age of magic. You can buy grimoires translated
Mhm.
into English on Amazon in 1 day delivery. You can get pretty much any materia that you need on the internet, or find networks of people on taxidermy Facebook groups who will supply it to you,
Right.
and pretend that's not what it is. There's all kinds of places, and basically, but that comes with choice paralysis, right? Like we were talking about this earlier before we got on air. There's so much to do. Um,
Mhm.
Shrek moment. Anyway, oh no, that's
Oh,
not how I meant that.
fuck.
Fuck. Anyway,
But
I'll.
really, there's a good point to that where there are so many different entry points, but I find that after the entry outside of, kind of closed oral lineages or, really finding good community, there is a lack of resources of saying, okay, I did the Grimoire Conjuration. I made the demon show up, or I made the angel show up, or I made the spirit show up, or I made the fairy show up, whatever it may be. Or I went into the woods and I poured a bunch of milk on a tree and so I started to ride in the ground and saw what showed up. There is a absence, possibly for good reason, of researchers saying, okay, what the fuck do I do now?
Yeah. Yeah,
Mm,
and also how do you stay grounded in what you
mhm,
do have so that you don't just go off the rails and start playing Pokemon with spirits or traditions,
that's
so
right.
that you don't just collect techniques and then they just sit. It's one thing to have a bunch of PDFs and books, and not necessarily read them all. It's another thing to pick up a bunch of practices and not really know where to go with them. And
Mhm,
I do think that experimentation is really key to this. Like, I think that you should just be allowed to just play with things in general. But I do think that beyond that, just that we should lay down some guidelines as to how do we stay focused as people who are in multiple traditions. Because I
mhm,
think this is a topic that came up in our Q&As several times at this point. People asking like, "Hey, you guys, I mean, I'm hearing from you that you'd have multiple traditions. It's obvious that all three of you have some that you won't speak about in public that you do."
mhm.
Um, like Assault is often the one who's like speaking about like having a very like ascetic and kind of practice in some ways, but at the same time, he's out here doing like full on ritual magic and like
That's right.
astrological magic, and he's also doing like fairly complicated prayers and oral charming techniques and so on and so forth. So like it's not like any one of us stick to just kind of one methodology necessarily, but they are all informed by a greater worldview. And I think this episode, from what I understand, is really going to be diving into that.
Mhm. And I think even on that note, we are notorious dabblers, but not in the sense that we just dabble in things. It's we try everything and see what sticks. When it sticks, we go deep and we go wide. Uh, Simultaneously, if something doesn't stick, if we're like, hey, I'm gonna pick up this, practice, and I'm gonna cultivate a certain skill for, let's say 6 months, a year, however long, and we're like, hey, this isn't really for me. Even touching on how to put that down respectfully and with honor for the tradition and the blessings that those spirits or deities have brought to us in that interim period, but saying, hey, this isn't my jam, but let's, have good respect between you and me. If we encounter each other in the future, let's be on good terms.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think really the cornerstones of this are going to be staying grounded in your practice
Mm-hmm.
involves staying grounded in your land, staying grounded in your spirit relationships, and staying grounded in your mediumship is the way
Absolutely.
you access these things. And then staying grounded in the practical day-to-days of what it is to maintain your life, because your magic should not be separate from it. I
Mm-hmm.
don't really believe in like a strict sacred profane dichotomy here, in the sense that yes, there are some times where you need to be more, undergo certain purity standards and where you may need to be in a particular kind of way. But at the end of the day, you're still coming home to your dishes, to your broom, to, your day-to-day life, and you need to be able to integrate.
And that's absolutely one of the most important things, especially if you are, a magician, sorcerer, healer, witch, whatever you choose to call yourself, or more importantly, the community calls you. If you choose to be in service of a community or have no choice but to be in service to a community, how do you balance those things out? How do you be that spirit medium, that person who can have one foot in the other world long enough to be able to be like, okay, here is novel information, here is a remedy, here is a cure, here is whatever I need to do, and still simultaneously be able to step out of that, have the foot in this world, and be like, hi guys, what's good? Let's go to fucking dinner, hang out, clean the house, figure shit out, and then we'll, talk about what just happened.
Yeah, exactly. I guess the first thing that I wanted to mention on that note, then, since you kind of opened the floor, is I'm not like we're not joking about the necessity of like chores,
Mhm.
because there's a, our godfather, Tata Apokan, actually once very famously said to the both of us at different times that like really like Macumba, like magic, sorcery, what is not done until the last dish is complete.
Mhm.
And this isn't just because there's like lore of like spirits of the dead or different kinds of parasites coming through the drain to like lick the final scraps of offerings that are still sticking to the plates before they're washed. Like that is a part of it, but really this is a broader philosophy of what
Mhm.
it is to actually take care of your home and take care of your space and take care of the rite. Because the rite begins when you realize you're going to start doing it. Um,
Mhm.
and it ends when you've completed every part of the process, which includes the fact that like, you've done your dishes after you make offerings, you've swept after you've laid dusts, you've done the laundry if you put it
Mhm.
on, or if you need to clean clothes or cloths and so on and so forth. Because And the reason this is important beyond the very like practical physical necessity of having your home clean and making sure that like because disorganized homes can be places where spirits hide,
Hmm.
that you don't necessarily want to be around. More organized means you're able to kind of figure them out. And this doesn't mean that you have to keep it like perfectly, spotless. It's just a matter of organization. Um, lest the demons of you not
Hmm.
labeling your bags of dirt come to haunt you. Um,
Very true.
or the powder that kills people versus the powder that heals people looks just like the same gray mass, and you don't know which one is which. But it's the reason
Hmm.
is also because the spirits that patron these tasks are your ancestors. Like beyond any
Hmm.
other tradition, like it's your ancestors that lived through all of that and did all of that. And if they are sated, if they are comfortable with the way that you're living your life and in some ways are able to actually like see the way that you integrate and channel your magic and your practice seamlessly as much as possible into your broader life,
Hmm.
then they're gonna be much happier than just you giving them a cup of coffee and telling them to fuck off for a little bit. Like they're gonna be actually promoting prosperity because everything else is actually taken care of. It's kind
Hmm.
of like it's the sorceress like life goal equivalent of handing in the resume after you've actually jujued the resume.
Absolutely.
It's
Yeah.
like the person who burns all those 7-day candles for money and is like, well, I'm not getting a job, and they haven't actually handed anything in.
Yeah, for sure. And, even in the matrix of spirits that propagate these traditions, that will show up in people's ear and be like, do it this way, make
Hmm.
this alteration, talk to this person because they have good lore of what you should be doing. Or, the spirits that come in from the woods and are like, I'm the way that this works on this land.
Hmm.
All of these things as we work to ancestralize them in that way and make them patrons of our craft by being good descendants of their craft. Um, we participate in these activities. We sweep the floor, we do the dishes, we figure shit out because we want to make the environment as good as possible for them to be like, okay, there's nothing else to worry about. Let me just start posting lore in the kitchen.
It's so
Um,
true if you've ever trained with someone in person, but it
mhm,
also, but think about it as well within terms of like what it is for your ancestors to be empowered and to be satisfied and to feel like they want you to do well. They want you to live well.
mhm,
And when I say ancestors, I just want to make a quick note here because sometimes we've had people approach us at the Patreon server or in the Q&As and be like, hey, like I'm not actually good with most of my ancestors. Like the
mhm,
recent dead have been homophobic or have been bigoted towards me in some way or have actually disempowered my agency. They've not been the ones that have propelled me forward to success. Like how do I
mhm,
kind of get over that? Like I don't really want to approach them necessarily in that way. And I just want to make the note that when we say the term ancestors, we're not even necessarily referring to individual people in your
mhm,
bloodline or whatever in your family. And we're not necessarily even referring to adopted, ancestors, such as like, let's say you're a writer and so there's a famous novelist that you want to take on as an ancestor and incorporate into your prayers. We're referring to the rhizomic expanse of every being that's connected to you that enabled you to live and
mhm,
is related to you and your family. So that essentially is a vast legion of more spirits that you can count that
mhm,
are directly responsible in some way or another for you being alive. And when we pray to them, we're not even necessarily praying to them as individuals, although individuals can come out and, I guess, individuate, as it were, and
mhm,
be like, hello, I'm a sorcerer from like the 14th century, let's talk. And that does happen and it will happen. But what we're referring to is the legion, the collective. And you can
mhm,
call on them as a collective by praying to them as a collective and saying, I'm actually adamantly not calling to you as individual great grandpa who was was such and such way towards me. Like I'm calling at you as a collective, which includes all the way back to, our caveman ancestors, as it were,
mhm,
to say that like I am the fruition of your line because I'm alive. The only justification that you need to help me is that I'm alive. Like you don't get
mhm.
a say in how I live my life. You don't get a say in what I do with it. You just have to help me be happy
That's right.
because that is the justification of my life. You don't get anything else. You don't get to have a word in my religion. I mean, yes, of course, some will. Like you might have to do ancestral mediation in those cases. Like for example, if you have like a particularly problematic ancestor. But what I'm trying to say in general is that with you can adjust how you work with them based on how you pray to them and how you command them.
Mhm.
Just like how you can clone spirits as a collective or as individuals, or force some of them to individuate and make themselves known, like send a monk from your legion, a member of yours, to speak to me directly and be an intercessor, that spirit comes forward.
Mhm.
Really what we're saying is that you can and should in some cases pray to them as a collective to like move things in a better direction. And when that collective is satisfied because their collective
Mhm.
knowledge of what it is to live a life is being seen incarnated in you, not only will they be more powerfully available to you, but they'll also help you filter out parasites, spirits that will pretend to be ancestors, will pretend to be other spirits in your court, will want attention and offerings, and their only point, their only like purpose in life is, as it were, is to create more of themselves. So they will just promote
Mhm.
the behaviors that let you invite more of them in, which can include symptoms of disorganization, symptoms of messiness, symptoms of not really looking after yourself, just to promote more of them. And so
Mhm.
really, the cleanliness aspect of it, again, not this is not meaning like literally like amazingly perfectly clean. It's just organized. And also the strength of the ancestors then just allows you to actually discern them because you're going to know in your bones what it's like when the spirits are happy with how things are. It'll
Mhm.
feel good. The air will smell nice. You'll feel sense from your ancestry that you won't even remember necessarily, but will be like, huh, it's interesting. Like I smell it every time I'm just trying, even though I'm not burning any incense.
Mhm.
And you'll know in your bones when things are right. It increases the efficacy of your magic. And it also furthermore assists you in being able to discern these spirits so that parasites are way less likely to trick you.
Mhm. That's one of the most important things for this entire practice is the notion of the collective, in terms of when you are propitiating the collective dead, 100 generations of people who are so distant from you who only care, are you healthy? Are you able to receive a blessing? Are you happy? Will drown out the voice of racist great grandpa who we would rather forget.
Mm.
Um, so giving the offerings, giving the appreciation, giving the prayers in this way, even help to remediate some of those forces by saying, you are no longer a racist Uncle Jim, or whatever the example may be. You are collective ancestry who is only invested in my well-being. Um, and that even gets to the point of training our spirits to behave in certain ways, uh,
Yeah.
by coded offerings, by repetition of the way that we engage with them, by giving them certain things, by depriving them of certain things, by praying in certain ways. These are all things that will come up later in this episode, but really these are the fundamentals that allow us to say, even in the case that Sfinga mentioned earlier of parasites of weird shit that might be attacking us, it's saying whatever the fuck you might be trying to do to me, you are drowned out by a collective of everyone who cares only about my success, my well-being, my health, my happiness, my joy, my good sex, good food, good life, etc. Because they're dead, and the world of the dead is very boring. So
Hmm.
they will attempt to re-experience it in any way as possible. And if that is through us, then that is fucking perfect.
Hmm. Absolutely. And I think this also dovetails into, I mentioned that you will feel the difference, but I also want to
Mm.
emphasize that, like, yes, you will feel that things are improving, that's for sure. But when it comes to doing magic, since we're talking about basics, you don't actually have to like feel, quote unquote, the power like surging through you, for ritual actions to be effective.
Hmm.
Because magical actions are not necessarily psychological actions; they are practical actions. And while
That's right.
there are times that you're gonna feel it for sure. There are times when like I've sat at my shrines and I've done my offerings and I've spoken to them and I've had all of that like interaction and that's all well and good and I don't really feel much even though I'm normally like a fairly sensitive person and I normally get a lot of visuals. Like I hear voices and I get visuals. Um, so normally I'm getting like a whole, broad panacea of things.
Hmm.
And I'm like, okay, well, all right, whatever. I'm gonna go and do my thing. And like as I'm doing the dishes, like I suddenly that spirit will talk to me and like whisper in my ear the whole time. And this is an example I've heard from so many people, almost word for word, including
Hmm.
my mentors, including my colleagues, including each other. Talked about that with Salt and you many a time. Like almost word for word, this exact example that I just
Hmm.
told. And I think it's because it's so universal, right? You're doing the thing that's kind of mind-numbing and repetitive, like doing a chore, and that's when a spirit comes through and starts being like, "Hey, like let me tell you something."
Hmm.
But that's the thing too, is like when you're doing a ritual. Like it doesn't have to feel the power like coursing through your veins and like you're trembling with like ecstasy. Sometimes like a lot of that like performativity of power actually like doesn't really translate into a lot of efficacy. What it can be is it could just be performativity in some ways of
Hmm.
like it's just happening to you and your body's enacting it that way. It could be many different things. But some of the most effective magical results I've ever had were ones where I was kind of like, I don't know, I didn't really feel much, but I'll let the candle burn and I'll go home. And the
Hmm.
next thing I knew, like I got the result instantly. So it's just a
Exactly. Yeah.
reminder, yeah, not to just necessarily stress about it because I think part of back to basics is also back to like basic mental health hygiene about magic, which is don't break your own heart over things not looking and feeling and sounding a certain way.
Hmm.
Your relationship with your spirit will evolve over time and you will learn the way that they feel in your body, but you don't have to necessarily feel them in order to
Hmm.
actually be there. For them to be there with you and for them to actually make it work.
Exactly. Yeah. It matters so much more that you went to your ancestor table on a day that you felt like shit. And you're like, oh, nothing is going to get done today. I'm just lethargic. I'm sick. I'm hungry. I'm blah, 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 blah. And just feeling gross. You go to that table, you just slam the glass of water down, put the candle down, be like, sorry, guys, I'm fucking off today. Like, whatever. Walk away. You will feel better
Mhm.
because you did the thing that makes them feel better and enables them to give that blessing to you and codes them to act in a certain way.
Mhm. Exactly.
So, mm-hmm.
It's like we talked about in many of our episodes about troubleshooting and into spiritual hygiene and so on. Like the time when your daily practice matters is the day that you don't want to do it. It's the day that you're too tired to do it. And
Mm-hmm.
you could just come to your shrines and be like, hey, I don't have time or the energy to do the usual prayer. Here's a stick of incense. Here's like a shot glass of
Right.
water. That's all I have energy for today. And that one flags to them that when they're tired and broken and exhausted as spirits, like they can still put in that effort for you. And two, that you care enough to still attend to them, even if otherwise you're not doing so hot. It's a show of
Mm-hmm.
friendship as well as a show of dedication.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, if you have a mantra practice, when you brush your teeth, say the mantra 3 times after you spit that shit out, you know?
Hmm.
It,
Totally.
you don't have to do a lot. You just have to do enough to say, shit fucking sucks. I'm just doing the minimum that says I acknowledge you. I'm here with you right now. Even
Yeah,
if that time that I'm with you is 5 seconds, you have spent 5 seconds longer than you would have otherwise by setting it down and doing fuck all.
totally. And I guess on that note, we should probably talk about like what are the fundamentals for a basic
Mm-hmm.
practice, just so it's more transparent.
Yeah, that's
Um,
right.
hmm I do you want to start us off, Key?
Yeah, I think one of the most fundamental skills that I'll always come back to is mediumship. Because not only because it's something I teach, something that I really enjoy, something that I appreciate, something that has infinitely benefited my life, but because it's the skill that is the most straightforward to cultivate while simultaneously giving you the biggest benefit.
Mhm.
Because this is doing nothing more than integrating you with your spirits and integrating your spirits with you. if you develop enough ability to come out of that ritual where you felt nothing, you're like, this is bullshit. And then you sit down on the couch and suddenly your primary spirit's sitting next to you and being like, yeah, that was some bullshit, but like, let's talk about it now because here we are. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh, okay, cool. I'm doing the thing. But no, that's one of the primary skills for me. And also, it's the vehicle that allows you to learn from other people at different levels. It's the ability that allows you to learn from your spirits as you cultivate it in certain ways, you know, especially as you discern identities or have identities discerned for you in these contexts. You start making offerings, start being like, hey, here's water, what's fucking good, dude? And then they step forward and be like, hey, give me whiskey with a little shot of gin and some coffee all mixed together, and then give me a cigarette, and then wrap some yellow cloth around it and put some lottery tickets under it, and then we'll talk. And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
why am I suddenly, an old woman from New York? But here we are.
Mm-hmm.
All these things that coalesce, and I think as part of that, if you've ever taken, mediumship development stuff with me, or got consults, um, everything that I teach essentially is in the first lesson. Like the core essence of what's going on has been distilled down into, if you spend an hour with me, if you do this, you will get better. Anything past that is, let's talk specifics. If you have blocks, let's overcome them. If you have difficulties, let's figure it out. If you want more specific techniques, I have them in spades. But really, it's just do the thing that you learn in that process, and you will get to a point where you're like, I'm feeling good, but I have questions because I've run into situations, I've seen shit that I don't really know what it is, and then we can do the work. Um, in that sense, the rest is just sitting down, doing it, having patience, having discipline, figuring out the thing. Even if you feel like shit, just, go, pick up the glass of water, pick up whatever else is there, throw it away, refill the glass of water, sit back down, let it stick in until it's going. What's good? I don't have time. I have 5 minutes. Tell me anything I need to know. If you don't have it, see you later. I'll talk to you tomorrow. It's that type of thing, and really, it can be that casual. And ideally, it is, in my opinion, um, because you doing these things when it feels like talking to a friend is the ultimate motivator.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, rant about mediumship aside,
No, it's a bottom text. I completely agree with
yeah,
you.
it really is a bottom text. I'm like, and this really segues into the next topic, of, it that understanding that we're just talking to our friends, and we're developing ways to better talk to our friends informs all of our approach. Our closest friends are our ancestors.
Mm,
I would love to talk to my grandma. She's no longer here, but she's here in many other ways. So when you start to address that situation of saying, here's my grandma, here's my grandpa, here's my, friend who has passed away, here's my mentor, here's my, whoever, who is in the world of the dead, consider what the world of the dead is. It's cold, it's bland, it fucking sucks, it's dark, and it's kind of like annoying. So, what do you do?
mm,
And it smells kind of funky because all of the decaying things that are there are decaying. So, we shape our offerings around these things. We give them cold water because if you are wandering for like 1,000 years and are like, oh, this sucks. What am I doing? I just have to put one
mm,
foot in front of the other. The first thing you want is a cold glass of water.
mm,
Next thing is it's fucking dark. It's cold. Give them a candle.
mm,
Next is they're hungry. They'll want some food. Once a week, you set out something starchy, bland, white because it's like if they get pissed off, we're gonna run into some fuck shit. And also, when you're really hungry, give me a loaded baked potato with everything on it that I like.
Yeah, yeah,
If I'm tired, give me coffee. If I'm doing whatever, give me a shot of something just to revitalize me. And you'll notice really quickly, give me incense because it smells like decay in here. Give me something nice.
yeah.
Or give me perfume, something like that. And you'll notice very quickly that these are all very traditional offerings for the dead because we're just addressing the shit that happens in the world of the dead.
Yeah, 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 absolutely.
And for those elementally inclined, or very grammatically inclined, or hermetically inclined, or Wicca, Spiritism, whatever it may be inclined, in all of this panoply of stuff we have going on, we have fire, water, earth, air. All the elements are present. We're balanced. We're doing our thing. We are creating a perfect environment for anything to manifest, and we hope and know that the thing manifesting through that is our ancestors speaking with a collective voice.
Hmm.
Also about a text.
No, it's so fucking true.
Mhm. So yeah, I think, even expanding on that concept, right? When they start coming in, it's the ability to perpetuate, maintain, have record of what they're saying. So we start writing it down. We start drawing things. We start creating uh, mnemonic devices for the wisdom that is being passed down because we have lost other ways to have it. Uh, so we create, you know, start writing shit down. Something I recommend to every one of the people who comes to me for a consultation is start keeping a dream journal, start keeping a magic journal. Two different
Mm.
books, handwrite them. Don't put them on the computer because handwriting them helps. Why this is, I don't know,
It
but
also
it
it also does
helps.
help with like lucid dreaming and dream recall,
Mhm.
as if you handwrite them.
That's
And
right.
this is not a thing that I personally do. I'm gonna be very public about that. I mine is on my phone,
Mm.
but I do agree with Key. I've noticed that when I've had a physical one, it worked better. Why is it on the phone? Because sometimes you gotta cut a little corner.
Yeah.
Make some concessions where you can, so at least you don't just like not do it.
Mhm.
So even with these things, like do what you can. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good, I think is the
That's
Jason Miller
right.
quote. Yeah, like just but do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's I advise writing down physically because it works better for me. No other reason. If it works better for you on the phone, do it on the phone. If
Mm,
if it works better for you by putting a fucking post note on the head of your bed each night, do it like that. Whatever works. The emphasis is on pragmatism and orthopraxy. It's on
mm,
doing something over not doing something, even if that something is just a token gesture.
mm,
Even if that something is, I had a dream tonight. So I'm going to put a coin that is the fact that I dreamed on my bedside table. And then I'm going to put it in my pocket when I go to sleep.
mm,
And then I wake up in the morning and I'm like, did I have a dream? Did I not have a dream? If I had a dream, cool, on the table. And that
mm,
will train you into this is now part of my routine to pick up that coin and put it in my pocket. Therefore, I need to have part of my routine be a dream.
mm,
And it's all about that training. Small shit. Even knew people who would put a deck of cards on the bedside table when they would go to bed, pray for clarity, and then pick up the card in the morning, being like, "This is gonna be a spade." Pick it over, it's
mm,
a spade. Or pick it up, it's a heart. And train psychometry in that way, because they were just like, "I'm just gonna make this a very regular, normal function of my everyday life."
mm,
And part of the 201 of this is saying, here are all these techniques. Let's integrate.
mm,
So yeah, same deal. Writing utensils, chalk, be it a phone, be it a pen, be it just scribbling shit on the floor and then taking a picture of it after the fact because been there, done that.
Sometimes you gotta.
Mhm.
It's when I know it's real is because both you and Salt use your DMs with me as your dream journal. when it's not in writing
Yeah,
physically. And
very
Salt,
true.
out of all of us, is like the most like journal pilled person. Like he
Hmm.
has, like most of the gifts that I've gotten him over the years have been like books or journals because he always wants more of them. He wants a
Hmm.
nice leather bound journal, a nice moleskin of art, and he actually fills them. He's not one of those people who just collects journals. He will fill every
Yeah.
page.
Meanwhile, I'm over here being like, herb 6, 14, and 20, grind them, add herb 21 and dust 2, move on with life.
Yeah, your background in chemistry and genetics is
Yeah.
so evident. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Keep that motherfucking thing on you.
Hmm.
And I would also say, in addition to like a strong ancestral practice, so this could just be any kind of ancestral veneration practice that your culture prefers. This could be a generic one. Whatever it is, either it's just a candle and a glass of water or several glasses of water. So you will do one glass for female ancestors, some do one for male ancestors, some do like individual glasses for specific ancestors that come forward that are
Hmm.
smaller. So people have a very boveda espiritual kind of practice. Some people have one that is less spiritist and more based in sort of the Christianity or Islam or Buddhism or any other religion of their area. Either way, whatever you do, just have something where you can serve them every day. And that's a cup of coffee, a glass of water, a little bit of what you ate that day, and a prayer. Even if it's, I set it down sometimes absentmindedly, but they know what to expect in that area.
Hmm. Yeah, I find that even having something set up next to your stove is very helpful for this. Not only because, that's generally the heart of the home these days. That's the equivalent of the hearth fire, because it's where your roommates, your family, whatever, will receive sustenance, but also because it's really fucking easy just to, before you put a spoon of whatever you just cooked in your bowl, take a spoon, put it in a tiny bowl, set it aside, and be like, all right, now I'm having dinner. And
Mm,
pass up on your ancestors taken care of.
yeah, totally. Another back to basics is once you've had your ancestral practice on point and you've been keeping your dream journal so you can learn how to lucid dream and
Mm,
your magic journal and so on, have some certain things like on hand. I would say
that's right.
chalk for the floor, writing utensils, the ballpoint ink pen and moleskin of art, as we
Mm,
mentioned previously, have on hand like you can do this in your journal, but like a collection of quick prayers that you like. This could be mantras, this could be chants, this could be verses from the Bible, your favorite Psalms. Like I've kept like a moleskin that just has like handwritten favorite prayers that I've taken from different texts that just can kind of like bust out quickly. For a while, I was actually using Jim McGarry's Charmers Psalter just to kind of have as like a quick. It's literally published to be one of those like pocket books you can have, which I quite love.
mm,
I have the hardcover version that's like nice and pretty, and then I have the busted paperback of art that I've been actually taking to the cemetery and so on. So I love that, and I recommend her work.
mm,
And then you can also have, I also have this as like a note app sort of thing. Or on my Google Keep, I just keep, haha, a bunch of fucking
mm.
prayers archived under the same label, so I can just kind of scroll through them if I'm out and about and I need them. So just kind of have those on hand, and it can also motivate you to pray. Like know your planetary hours. I love a planetary hours app on the phone. I love knowing the planetary hour, and I do
Mhm.
enjoy like the kind of the seasonings for planetary hour work, which it could be like the Hygromantia prayer of the day, depending on the particular day it is. This could be like a Deccan thing. This could be just like the knowledge of like who is the spirit and of the day, which the Hygromantia also calculates for you. So you can kind of make it a bit more fancy. And then I also recommend a calendar. Like for example, if you use a Google Calendar or something like that, make a custom calendar that is just feasts, important anniversaries, saint days, specific days where you celebrate certain spirits, important anniversaries just like in general, anything that you feel like is notable, and then like a task app. Like I'm such a I need to shit to stay organized, guys. I live and die by my calendar. So this could be like a literal to-do list app. This could be notes. This could be integrated tasks on your calendar. But just like
Mhm.
or like I like Todoist. I was introduced to it by a good friend of the show, Joe Spooky, who was like, it actually like not only does it integrate into calendar, it also lets you set up like refreshing tasks. So it can be like,
Hmm.
oh, every day do this prayer, or every day set up coffee for the ancestors, and so on and so forth. And that's just wonderful. So like streamline your life a little bit. Like if you need to use AI for it, do it. Honestly, like I think that the better we get at kind of making these things easier for ourselves, the more fun it is to do them because you're not thinking as much.
Hmm.
And also have on hand your essential offerings. I am totally the person that will code them in elements. As in like fire, as in candles, air, as in let's say incense, earth, as in like physical offerings, including like bread or whatever it is, like food, and then water, as in water or alcohol. So like I don't mean like literally elementally typologizing them, but just like thinking of them as like, okay, do I have one of each thing in my house that I could like even if it's just like a spare bottle of gin or water that I could pour.
The importance of having all these things present and the ability to give all these things is, part of that orthopraxic lens, right? Like if you notice that there is a difficulty in whatever you're doing, or, something just feels really off, being like, what the fuck is going on? And then suddenly being like, oh, there's no the ability for the spirit to manifest. It feels deflated, feels dehydrated, feels like just nasty, and it's like just grinding along and being like, oh, I'm coming. It's like, I don't know, throw some gin in that direction and be like, let this clear away whatever's bullshit's in front of you. Throw some water, be like, let this refresh you, and then put out a glass and be like, cool, let's move on, you know?
Hmm.
And even just having this in hand, like you mentioned, it's a good offering practice, but it's a good sorceress. Like, how do I figure out how to make it manifest practice?
Hmm.
Beloved film of the show Exuma demonstrates
Yes.
quite nicely of being of a particular conjuration scene of being like, if you're fucking tired and feel weary, here are some shoes that are very comfy to walk in. Here's a nice feast for you at the end if you're hungry. Here's a glass of water for you if you're thirsty. Here's a incense if you smell like shit from traveling from so far away.
Can I just say how mad I am that the official like subtitles, like I watched the movie in theaters, and that it didn't actually subtitle the scene. It's the one where
Mhm.
Hvarim is trying to summon, spirit that I will not name so people don't get spoiled into her apprentice's
Mhm.
body. And the spirit is struggling to respond to her summons, like she doesn't really want to. And so what she does is she makes this chant. And because I later on was like, I need to know what these chants are. So I saw someone like had basically uploaded a pirated version of the movie and they had translated it from Korean to English themselves. Like they made their own
Mhm.
subtitles, which sometimes included like bracketed explanations of terms, which was fun. Um, whoever this person was subtitled all the chants and prayers because they're also in Korean. Like they don't have to necessarily not
Mhm.
be included. And in that particular chant, as Kay was saying, is one where she's basically saying like, "Oh, if you're too embarrassed to show up to the feast that I'm calling to you to because you don't have the right shoes, just take these broken down sandals, but still come. And if you're too tired to walk, take a few steps, like rest for 2 seconds and then take a few steps." Like this is a paraphrase, but like the whole idea being like you don't have an excuse, you have to come.
Good shit.
Hmm.
Do that, by the
Literally,
way.
I was like, I am taking this particular technique. Not that it's new in some senses, like it literally is.
Mhm.
Very like much known. But I really did think to myself, I was like, damn, like this is real. Like I'm totally gonna use some of this phrasing. And I even copied it down in my journal,
Mhm.
in my notes app.
That's right. And even, in various other conjurations, old charming, histrionic, songs where it's like, this rooster who wasn't crowing before came crowing on top of this mango tree. Who is that rooster? It's the spirit I'm trying to get possessed. Let's fucking do this.
Mm.
Um, Shout out to the same five people when we send the reference.
Oh God.
um, got a second. I know it's doing it again. Um, but yeah, understanding these. spirits as beings who have or desire particular things in order to be made more manifest is an important lens for our own magic because we can kind of meet them in the middle in that sense. In that we have particular things that make us tick too.
Mm,
We have, particular languages that immediately click for us. We have correspondences that make a lot of sense right off the bat of saying, hey, I, right when I'm starting out, here are three herbs that I use for everything.
mm,
Furthermore, as my relationship with these three herbs becomes deeper, better, more comprehensive. As you know, their spirit and my spirit become fused. We trade parts of ourselves. We do all these fun things. Um, I can use the same, maybe I don't know, five things for fucking any problem that comes in front of me at this point because I'm like, I care about these herbs. They care about me. We'll figure it out. Um,
mm-hmm.
and it goes to the question of like physical needs of your practice. What do you actually need versus what is nice to have? Uh,
Yes,
you know,
totally.
if you, it is really fucking nice to have 121 different herbs that are extremely rare, that are the exact recipe for the thing that I need, that I found in a book that someone gave me because they're like, oh, this person told me you need this thing. I'm like, fantastic. Let's do it.
Mm,
If I can get them, great. If I can't get them, or if I'm in a situation where I'm like, I need to just do this fucking spell. I'm gonna walk into my garden. I'm gonna get the three herbs that I know in combination can do this thing. Pray over them in the way that they have taught me through me just sleeping with them under my pillow and giving me dreams of being like, what do you do? What can you do for me? How do I expand your ability? What do I plant in the soil? What do I inoculate you with virtue wise to be able to do more for me? Just be like, all right, you and you're my guys. Let's fucking do this.
totally.
Um, and even in like the historical record of like root doctors, who are like before the commercialization of hoodoo, which is a whole thing unto itself. Shout outs, Dr. Finch, shout outs, Professor Porterfield for really diving into the shit. But
And shout out to Gary Noriyuki.
yeah, very true. And Mama Star
Mm-hmm.
is his teacher, of just being like, before this was fully co-opted into pharmacological catalogs of the 20s, 30s, and 40s, uh, you know, whoever the fuck would just be like, I don't know, I'd pick this thing out of my garden and we do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like that is the perfectly valid way to do it because it works.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And furthermore, as you were saying, not many people work with more than a set number of plants, but you should be able to do everything with that plant. Like
Mm-hmm.
I think I have many times mentioned how much like nettle and broadleaf plantain are kind of everything to me,
Yeah.
and they're probably everything to a lot of herbs. This is not unique to me, but like I they do grow everywhere, and I do use them for everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I understand their growth cycles very well. But that's also, I think you should, in addition to knowing your basic herbs, you should know your basic trees. Like what literally lives near you. Do you have a backyard?
Absolutely.
What is the most prominent tree in your backyard? Do you
Mm-hmm.
like what is the most prominent tree on like the first major intersection or crossroads out of your neighborhood, or like the
Mm-hmm.
first major one that marks the boundary to your neighborhood? Um,
Exactly. Yeah. It's like especially understanding what is the most proximal, what is the first thing you see when you wake up in the morning, what is the thing that is the gate to your house essentially, what is the primary shrine where you live, what is the tree that is figuera for you, what is the tree under which all spirits aggregate.
yeah, where do the
Ooh.
spirits gather near you? It's like kind of like going to a cemetery and being like the main place where like the Lord or the Baron or the master of the cemetery lives may be the oldest grave. It may
Mhm.
be the biggest cross. Like it's a Catholic cemetery, the most prominent cross. It also could be like a very particular and significant tree on a hill somewhere.
Hmm.
But notice where spirits aggregate in your town, in your neighborhood, and so on. I've mentioned before, I love my city work, um, but going to like prominent statues and places where spirits gather and making offerings there, I mean, prominent clock towers and so on. But I would do some spirit geography.
Hmm.
Print off a Google map of your city, mark prominent areas, visit them, make offerings there, collect dirt from there, collect dirt from like the most northern, southern, western, eastern parts of the city like right where they transition into other
Hmm.
counties or towns or whatever, and then be like, cool, like this is bring it home, put it in a bowl with a bunch of other offerings or with particularly other kinds of dirt, so like different crossroads dirts, for example, and give it to one of your spirits to be like, let this be a place where I petition the spirits of the city, or like I burn
Hmm.
incense in here, and tell them, like think like a rock that you find in the middle of the city, like maybe the true center or whatever. And be like, what? This is where I petition the city spirits, and like, may they be
Hmm.
favorable to me. May they make it so that wherever I go, I'm always getting discounts. People are always happy to see me. The bus is never late for me. The traffic's never that bad. I always get free drinks at bars, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. Or like even, moving into my new place, I'm like, okay, in this geography, there are these two particular plants slash trees slash creatures. Find out if you're psychic enough that grow on either side of my driveway, and then the back path in has another herb slash tree slash creature. Again, find out
Mm,
that grows inside of it on either side. I'm like, based purely upon my geography, these are my two primary protection plants for the rest of the time I live here,
mm,
because they're the ones who block things from coming in and aid me in sending things out.
mm,
So I'm like, it immediately changes in that way based on geography. I have the plants I go to for protection. Like, very famously, I am a rosemary and lavender enjoyer. I love
mm,
that pair for literally every magic.
mm,
Most situations in front of me, if I have those two herbs plus, whatever else I'm feeling that day, be it, basil, mint, Grenade, whatever the fuck. I'm like,
mm,
I can solve any problem, but those two are my homies. At this point, I'm like, I'm just gonna protect myself with the guy who was going out front. Like, sorry guys, but here it
mm,
is. And we figured it out from there. Same deal with like if there's a geographical feature, if there's a prominent wood with like a really spooky tree, even like a downed tree that blocks your path. It's like, okay, this downed tree that blocks my path is now the thing that blocks the path of anyone in my life.
mm.
Um, to adapt, you figure it out.
Totally. 100%. So yeah, know your know your allies, know your city, know the major churches and places of worship,
Mm-hmm.
know the major temples, know the major like I love buying like a haunted insert city name book and just finding out like what are the fun ghost stories here
Mm-hmm.
and going out and checking them out. Um, and that way, as well, I think through these practices, but really what you're trying to do is figure out like what are the actual basic tasks and needs of your practice and really knowing this. Not
Mm-hmm.
mistaking it for more or less. Know what your minimum is. So you want to be able to in some ways, you have to be able to question the physical needs of your practice always. You don't want to be in a place where you think that more is better. If you can get your basic three herbs that you can find in your grocery store, you can grow, your basil, your rosemary, your rue, spinach, tarragon, parsley, and so on and so forth, broadleaf plantain, tarragon, whatever that might be.
Mm-hmm.
Then you are already in a good place. You know when that shop closes, you know when you can get it when you need to clean off real quick. You might keep
Oh
some
yeah.
extra around.
And like if you're in the continental US, like wormwood, motherwort, mugwort, cannabis, St. John's, all these things, they grow on the side of every highway. You'll know them as you see them. So
Hmm.
if you just go out there and like, spend that extra effort being like, where's the clover? Where's the sage? Where's the wormwood? Where's the whatever the fuck? And you learn to ID these things by sight. You figure out where they grow, you figure out where they're on the land, you figure out what properties they are. It's like, oh, mugwort grows in highly disturbed fucking crossroad soil. And no wonder it's gonna call in spirits. Um, Stuff like
Mm-hmm.
that. That will inform properties. And even if you live in a particular geography or particular biome, where some plant, it's like, hey, all the books say this thing, but it does in this environment, in this weather, in this atmosphere, this very particular thing that's kind of abnormal. Go with that, do what you see it doing in the environment, and that will train your herbalism real quick.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think kind of on a level of learning what works for you, learning what exists around you is important. Various herbal traditions across the world, as we previously mentioned. um you know Few, rarely, even the best healers, the best herbalists, the best doctors, the best people who know what the fuck they're doing at the roots, rarely stray outside of like the 7 to 12 or 13 that they know.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And a lot of herbalism traditions, especially European ones, dedicated their work toward, finding a panacea. And between different herbalists, that panacea might be a different plant because they just had that relationship where they could pray to that one plant spirit and be like, you Meritite, you can do fucking anything. Let's figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And even if they have to bring anything else in, that plant will probably be their emissary to the other spirits of praying to them, being like, when do I harvest the other ones? When do I get them? When do I blend them into the composition? When do I, you know, administer them? And in what dose the patient I'm seeing in front of me?
Mm-hmm.
Even if the herbalists themselves must take a fat dose of whatever they're about to give their person just so they can ride the spirit and put the spirit of that plant into the person too, so it heals them. And I think this segues wonderfully into the point of like what needs to be complex versus what can be complex, as two very different things. Because I think, there are recipes, there are remedies you'll find where it's, 7, 14, 21, 41, 121 herbs all packed together into a bottle and infused into something versus, maybe the question is that's just a synonym for a lot of herbs that happen to grow in a particular location where they just found all of them and put them in a thing and
Mm-hmm.
say this land spirit is now the thing protecting you because every herb that grows on top of it is now inside you.
Yes.
Versus, an herbalist who can be like, oh, you have this ailment. You have a respiratory infection. Take this echinacea alongside maybe a little, St. John's and a little, whatever else they have growing in their garden, and you'll be better in a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So complexity for complexity's sake is all good, but it really doesn't need to be complex when you could go for simple.
Mm-hmm.
I remember telling one of my students, I'm like, you don't need to do elaborate things. You don't need to go through the trouble of lighting 21 candles because you happen to walk through the seventh crossroads on your way to a thing and you have to acknowledge every spirit that's there in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Just say hi, passing through, get to where you need to go, light one candle, be like, the people I need to acknowledge have been acknowledged. I'm gonna go do my thing. I'm gonna go home. If it works, I'll maybe go back a week later, leave a little shot of something and be like, thanks guys. And then go
Mm-hmm.
home. It's yeah, I think a hard lesson, especially for like grimoire people, myself among them. So I'm throwing myself under the bus here. The the impulse to do over complexity, the impulse to add details, the impulse to be a perfectionist is there.
Mm.
Um, you don't need that shit. Just do what you're taught, do the minimum that is effective. Because I'm like, I don't need to give my spirit a feast when a candle will do.
Hmm. Yeah. 100%. You put it really well, Key. I think that that is such an important thing about when you were talking about what it is to question the physical needs of your practice. It just means that
Hmm.
like you should be able to do all this stuff not just on a budget, but like on the road. You know, we had a
Hmm.
whole episode about what it is to magic on the go, right?
That's right.
And so one of the things that I really want us to think about is like, in addition to all the tips we laid out in that, episode 48, Enchanting on the Go, what is it to actually be able to do all the same things from home, in a way that can kind of be a bit of a detox from like complexity, from like
Hmm.
having to feel like you have to work with absolutely every spirit and every being, but starting from like what resonates most with you and everything that Keith said about the kinds of like what it is to work with like a minimal set of plants and knowing them very well and being able to heal, curse, bless, bring love, bring money with all of them, applies to spirits.
Hmm.
So I don't think it's the right move necessarily to have a spirit for every task, but I think it's building really important relationships with all of them. Like, Key, you and I really never worked with like Aphrodite ever
Hmm.
prior to that experience with her, and now she's our go-to for so much. And
That's
in
right.
that way, like, what is a spirit that a lot of us go to for a lot of things? An expedite, for example. I have certain saints that I go to for pretty much everything. Marina of Antioch is one of them. Betka is another. Cyprian and Justina are another, and so on and so forth. Right? Haralambos is a major one for me. But I don't think it's right to go to absolutely every saint. In some ways, you gotta go to the ones that you have a really good relationship with. It's kind of like if I'm like, hey, I need to borrow $500, I know I could ask a really close friend of mine for that, but
Hmm.
I couldn't ask a stranger. So building that relationship is essential, right? Like the patron saint of whatever is your patron saint or your family's patron saint, right? So like if you need like, oh, what's my saint or my spirit for, let's say, getting love or getting money, it's the one that your family's already gone to if you have an ancestral practice, and if not, it's the one that you've already gone to for that that's reliably done it for you
Hmm.
before. I don't think that it's a coincidence that the people who have a really intimate relationship with an expedite work with him for a lot more than just getting things done quickly.
That's right. He gets anything done quickly, so you go to him for anything, you know.
Yeah.
The same for me, you know, like the he who shall not be named, who was my baptismal name. Um,
Mm,
I can go to for anything
mm,
because I'm like, that's my guy.
mm,
Um, Other people are great, sure, there's specific patronage in case of emergency or if a church consecrated them happens to be by me, great. But at the same
mm,
time, I'm like, you know, you know, the you know who of that name is very good for particular things in popular folk magic.
mm,
I'm like, I'm not gonna go to him for just one thing. I'm gonna go to him for anything because I'm like, you who have had a wonderful life, who has had my name, do this thing, you know, bottom text.
mm.
You know, I think even in that social dynamic of that, um the what saint do you go to for a particular thing, it's the saint who the church down the street is named after.
Yeah, exactly.
um who, you know, for me, like, I had never had anything going on with Our Lady of Lords. That
Mm.
particular Marian devotion was very alien to me, pun intended. But you know, the nearest church to me for a lot of the time that I was living in the Midwest was Our Lady of Lords. So I'm
Mm.
like, of course I'm gonna figure this out because there's a grotto here that heals people. So I'm gonna start using that and I'm gonna start praying to her for everything. So it's one of those things that adapts to the landscape. And even, you know, in the you know, traditions further afield, what is the deity or who is the Eshu or who is the Pamajir or who is the Caboclo or who is the Pachacveo who patrons such and such from me? I don't know. It's the one that possesses down the street from me. Or, you know, who is the matrix of dead people, bodhisattvas, deities, and, you know, whatever else who heals us. I don't know. It's whoever the shaman down the street in you know, Watt so and so, or that magician's workshop gets possessed by.
Exactly, exactly. Like, who's the spirit that like takes ownership of like this particular task? It's the one that possessed whomever when that was happening and made it get done.
Hmm.
So in your life, think about what that would apply for you, right? Who was the spirit that answered your first prayer? Who was the spirit that like got you your first job? Who was the spirit that helped you get your first girlfriend or something? Like, and then, do you still work with them? Like maybe that role has shifted and that's okay. Like we outgrow things.
Hmm.
But who is kind of the one that you really know will respond? And that may not just be like a publicly known spirit like a saint. It could just be a familiar that you're like, you're the one that
Hmm.
always gets the job done. Like, let me make sure that you're well fed and well nourished and that like I know what my basics are to attend to you. Is it a particular color of candle? Can you just handle the beeswax for a little bit? Can you make do with dollar store, paraffin, ugly ass white tea lights? The answer is probably yes.
Hmm.
They may
That's right.
not love it, but they will take it. So just do it.
Hmm.
Not in a sense of
Yeah.
like starve your spirit of beautiful things that you have now come to accrue, but just know what your minimum is because it will come in handy.
Hmm. Exactly. Yeah. Because it was like, I was kind of thinking about this in terms of the minimum. I'm like, uh, St. Christopher will always have a particular place in my heart because when I had nothing else, that was someone who answered my prayers. Among other people, it was him who I'm like, okay, I prayed to you. I got the job. I got the boyfriend. I got the whatever, figured it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was kind of the same deal with various other spirits of mine who just showed up at the time. I was like, hey, I met you in the wild. Like I was walking through the woods having had stuff that makes it easier to see spirits, wink wink, nudge nudge. And
Mm-hmm.
then I was like, hey, who are you? And they're like, who the fuck are you? And I'm like, I don't know, you want to make a deal? And the word. And then these have become some of my closest familiars just because of like a random chance encounter on one day where they answered a prayer and then we built a relationship over the course of like a decade now. Um,
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. And I guess maybe key if you feel comfortable like talking a little bit about what it was for you to get started with absolutely fuck all. Because I think people are often a little bit surprised to find out that like how minimalist you used to be, and the
mhm.
reason you are less minimalist now is just because you can.
Yeah, exactly. Like the only reason why, I have some beautiful tools, beautiful shrines, certain items of power that I would never have otherwise is because when I first started out, I was doing drawing spirits into crystals on paper that I didn't even have the money to pay for. I stole it from the library because I was like, I need this to fucking work. I was broke. I was living in essentially a trap house with like 10 other people. I'm like, I need this to work. So I took the sheet off my bed, made it into the robe. I made the table of practice on paper. Like I printed it from the GIF on Esoteric Archives. I printed the layman from the same thing. I did everything. I took the wand was whatever branch was on the plant that was growing right outside my door at the time. Going back to that early point, and I was like, this is gonna work because I need to work.
Mm,
And it did. And I was like, oh, cool, magic is real. This is gonna be my life forever.
mm,
So it was one of those things that really evolved from the principles that we're talking about today, where I was like, cool. I figured that out. I'm like, all right, great. What is the best protection I can get? Ancestral spirits who care about nothing more than my well-being. Great. Let's start making offerings. Even if, most of them are pieces of shit, they we drown out in the voice of the collective eventually. Let's
mm,
let's go wander around the woods, leave offerings at the bases of spooky trees for like a year. And then eventually someone will step out and be like, hi. And I'm like, what's good? Like, let's make a deal. We'll figure it out. And integrating into the landscape in that way. And just I think one of the it always sounds weird to say, but like one of the biggest pieces of advice I have was like just try and try and try and try. Like in my magic career, I have had So many failures just trying shit. Like
Mm,
so many times I've tried and it has not worked.
mm,
But I have never given up.
mm,
And I have tried until it fucking worked and it worked again and again and again and again. So really the piece of advice is just don't don't stop, no matter how discouraged you get, no matter how dark the days get, because I'm like, even now I'm still like, what the fuck is going on? Like, what am I doing in my life? And then something like, what I'm doing in my life is fucking miracles. So let's do it. You know?
mm.
So there's an attitude to it as well, that all these things inculcate. It's you just do it until it works, and once it starts working, you'll find the people you need to find.
Totally. Goes to show that like having the spirit around that you can rely on that will bring you into contact with better people.
Mm-hmm.
Keep your eyes peeled for some charms that Key and I are making with Aphrodite in honor of community and be part of a group fundraiser with a bunch of other lovely people that we care a
Mm-hmm.
lot about for our Kabbalah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Hmm.
And just to give back to that community who has taught me so much.
Absolutely. But in terms of those spirits, right? Like being able to arm them to do more with less is not about punishing them. It's not about
Mm-hmm.
not spoiling them. I love to spoil my spirits. I love to give them fancy things. I love to make their shrines even prettier. It's just about knowing what you actually need. And it's not about getting attached to those things, right? So like I would
Mm-hmm.
say if you have the cash and you have the space, like the literal shrine real estate, go all out, like make it big and lavish. But what you should remember is what do you actually need versus what is an accoutrement? Like if it all burned down, what would you need to just continue?
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully it's just a candle and a glass of water. But even so, with in terms of all of your spirits things, if you had to start from scratch, like what would you need? Being conscious of that will help you know what is essential. And will also help you ensure that your practice is not just streamlined, but something that you don't get snagged on the accoutrements. You actually let them empower you, so that when you give tools and armor and talismans as to spirits as like arms of their own, you're able to know that these are additional benefits. But you know what that spirit is like in your body. You know what it's like when you call them and they come. You know what the smell or the physical sensation or like the kind of mental um, mood shift is when they're around.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, yeah. And like kind of beyond that point, in the giving of tools to do more, in the training them to do more with less, like we get into all these techniques, we get into, elevation in both the very spiritual sense and in other senses, asking them, what do you need to be stronger? What do you need to be more able to manifest phenomena or result, or, your power, your agency, your ascendancy in this world and not just your world of spirit. These are all important things. And there are 11 techniques, being, stack of Bibles over a couple days versus, feeding them certain things versus, figuring it out. Ultimately, that's going to depend on the spirit. Um, as we've gotten into at many points in the podcast, also like you mentioned, Sfinga, arms, armor, talismans, equipping them with tools, figuring it out in that sense. And then really just giving them a set of divination tools. It's going to be equally important here. Um, Figuring out beyond just that, any sort of way to communicate reliably. Um,
Hmm.
you can train the spirit, you can meet in the middle ground, you can figure out divination tools, you can figure out divination methods, you can do the whole 9 yards, but ultimately just having that is invaluable. um, because even on your worst day, when you are full of doubt, when you are full of uncertainty, you need to be able to just throw something down and be like, everything's going to be fine. I'm just
Hmm.
freaking out right now, get there, do that, especially as well, because sometimes I'm like, what the fuck is going on? And then I just throw the thing and I'm like, oh no, I'm good. I'm just feeling it.
Absolutely. So, you mentioned it before, there's all those procedurally intense conjurations and grimoires being to start. Like you do all that work to get the spirit to show up, but now you get to have the fun part, which is where you just, you fill in the blanks yourself. It's why all good grimoires have tons and tons and tons of notations and extra
Hmm.
notes and sigils and seals, this literal handshakes, and it was like mudras that the spirits give you to call them, secret passwords. This is why I think the Tube of Vanir is so essential because I think it really arose out of this thing. I think someone made a pact with Anil and those spirits and then figured out how to streamline them and then gave the passcodes to us because the conjurations are just so
Hmm.
easy and so simple, and they read kind of like Enochian calls essentially.
Hmm.
So I do think that like once you get to the end, right? Like all I've seen practitioners with like old school grimoires who have nothing but like annotations and extra notes and a whole other binder full of notes that they keep with their main grimoire. Or they print it off like a PDF of the grimoire and then it's just nothing but blank pages at the end that they keep filling in and in. And this is one of those things where now you've gotten the spirit to show up, so now what? Well, you ask them, like, how can I call you faster? How can I make you, like, swear that you'll come by this hand seal? When I make this hand seal in air, like, you'll be present, you'll attend to my needs. Like, swear that you'll come when I do these things. And
Hmm.
then, like, start learning from them. Like, if it says the spirit teaches, I don't know, like, cleverness or knowledge of the sciences, start learning the sciences. Be like, okay, you teach languages, teach me how to learn languages. Like, give me the magic that makes me learn languages faster. Or
Hmm.
what, and if you're wondering, like, well, what is that magic? Well, the first thing you gotta ask yourself is like, what is it that makes you do things that's hard and repetitive and boring and makes you feel like kind of dumb? Like, it's like learning a language is 4 years of really not feeling articulate, and then in the fifth year you start kind of sounding really good, all of a
Hmm.
sudden, but it's slow. It's that generation, it's there's no trick to it other than practice, but like what makes you practice? What makes you stick to that? And then if a spirit can boost that, like how do you go about it?
Yeah, the point there is really important of the discipline of practice. Learning the language is a very apt metaphor too of saying, some spirits you won't be able to figure out for a while, even by their intention, just finding out where to meet in the middle. Um, and really like, I think a really wonderful point by our Tata, right, is how many people do you meet in a day who speak a quote unquote broken version of a language that you speak, but you still completely understand it and have a conversation?
Yeah,
And the answer is many, so you just fucking do the thing.
yeah.
Um, you sound fucked up for years, and then you're like, all right, maybe I'm getting better at this. I'm chilling.
Yeah, and you don't ever have to sound fluent. That's the other thing. You don't have to.
Hmm.
Like, my dad does not sound fluent, but you can understand him and you know what he's saying.
Hmm.
And
That's
and
right.
when he's speaking English, and he's gotten a lot better. And like that's really
Hmm.
what matters. So take that language metaphor, which we're so apt at giving on fretful
Hmm.
howls, and then bring it to every other aspect of your practice. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it should be at a place where you feel comfortable articulating yourself, even if that articulation is calling a spirit, making them show up, making them do the thing.
Hmm. And that's one of the things too on the flip side of being a magician. Be learning a language constantly, not because it will help you converse with mentors or spirits, which it will, but even if it doesn't, just it will cultivate the discipline to do this work in you.
I 100% agree, and yeah, that's
That's
one
one
I've
from you.
that's one I've been toting.
Mhm.
And
It's
yeah,
a
so like
Sfinga classic.
yeah. So that's the thing is like even if you don't do grimoires, like what is that for every spirit in your court? What are their
Mhm.
secrets, as it were, that they're willing to reveal to you? What are their names? What are the things that you've learned from them? Like out of your 13 herbs, let's say that you work, like show them to each spirit and be like, how would you use it? And they'd be like, okay, that familiar uses rosemary this way. That familiar uses rosemary this way. That saint knows rosemary in this way and gave me a psalm to go with it, and so on and so forth. And then you have suddenly like 50 more pages in your spell book that is custom tailored to your particular practice with your particular spirit core. And that also comes to, I guess, the end of our discussion, which is really the old reliable. Like what is your go-to money drawing? What is your go-to love drawing? What is your go-to luck drawing? What is
Mhm.
your go-to protection reinforcing? What is your go-to cleansing, banishing? What is your go-to malefica that you just keep in the back pocket like a fucking gun, just in case you need it? And
Mhm.
know what it is, know its modifications, know what makes it tick. Know, listen to episode 13 on our wards, listen to the one on troubleshooting your magic. I think it was episode 23. Really just to kind of like refresh your memory and like why things cannot work sometimes and how to make them work. Um, remember episode 24 on spirit offering protocols and get to a place where you feel like, okay, I got this. I know what I'm about. I know how to call these spirits. I know how to make them, come when I call them. I know how to make them respond to my summons. Here are my favorite techniques, be they planetary or spirit, like just kind of folk magic-y, or grimoire, whatever they are, or it's just like the spirit that I summoned from a grimoire now taught me random bits of folk magic, and now
Mhm.
they attend to my needs when I need money. Uh, and what are your protections to ensure that you're safe? Ancestral practices to ensure that you can discern, your mediumship practices to ensure that you know what's going on, and just keep going. And if there's a thing that you don't have to enchant, for example, let's say for partner, you don't have to do a lot of love magic. Well, then do it for other people. Practice on people that you with their permission sometimes. If you're like, I'm just gonna try and bless your love life. If I keep hearing you complain about it, let me do a little thing. Or divination scrying wise. Sorry, this is creepy, but like fucking Twitch streamers, man, they put their whole life on the
Mhm.
internet. If you want to practice divination, make a prediction about something and then see in a couple days if you're right, because the VOD will be up there.
Oh yeah. Scribe the baby.
Scry the baby.
Scribe canceled the baby.
Yeah.
Tell me about his brother.
Oh my God, no kidding.
Classic exercise that students of mine will understand.
That's not a joke. You've actually made people scry the baby. There you have it. Any final thoughts, Key?
Unreliable, on all those points. I will never tell you money orb. The money orb is go to the bank that you bank at, see what's going outside. It's good. Love herb. Fucking, what's the first plant that you saw when you fall in love?
Yeah.
Luck.
Oh.
When you scratch off a lottery ticket, what is the plant that dust from the scratcher fell onto?
Mm.
Protection, what grows at the end of your driveway, cleansing, what smell do you fucking like? What do your ancestors love when they smell? Like uh hygromantia prayers, planetary hours, traditional correspondence, all these are great. Do those as well, see what makes you tick, figure it out. um Play around.
Hmm. Very well said. Whip out them Hygromantia prayers, guys. They do you a world of good. I'll put that on your back to basics list.
Subscribe to the motherfucking Patreon where we have exposition on this in the last book
Q&A,
club.
yeah. And book club, that's true. And book club. Call them fucking sevenths.
Absolutely.
Was it the heptagram?
The
The
have
D the
to,
D, the D7 of the PGM
yeah,
of the tenth
D7 of
book of
art.
Moses? Yeah. The D10 of
the
Moses?
the 10th of sevenths.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Do the Heptameron and figure it out.
Yeah,
uh
yeah.
yeah, Sam.
Love you.
Some of the Patreon if you have no idea what the fuck I'm talking about.
Hmm. Well, what are our Akashic records today?
Oh man. My Akashic records are Dr. John and the Night Trippers, not to be confused with Dr. John D and his Nightly Spirits, which is the Bare Necessities Idris Elba Easy Tiger remix.
No fucking way, that is such a weird deep cut. What the fuck? Wait,
Hey
it's
man.
the fucking from like the Jungle Book?
Oh yeah, from the Jungle Book, the remake. We are talking bare necessities today. So what better a thing to go into than bare necessities?
Hmm. Wow. That's hilarious. My Mine is not so thematic. I mean, it is. Okay, so you know how you said like, oh, what's your herb for love? It's the first one you saw when you fell in love, or it's like the first bouquet of flowers. Like, what was the flower that you gave
Mhm.
your first girlfriend or something like that? Um, well, this is a song that played at the a nightclub that we went to when to see an artist named Saliva Commandos, who was fucking awesome. By the way, he played a lot of Orisha
Mhm.
music.
He
Um,
did. It
yeah,
was fucking based.
it was called Burning Garbage Cans, and the reason it's this particular song is because one, that was fucking playing when I was peaking. Anyway, but two, because
Same.
yeah, that was, but that was the night that some magic that I did really popped off.
Mhm.
And so that is now a song I associate with success.
Hell yeah. Good song. What I blasted when I was going over the border with yeah, so it was good.
That's fucking hilarious. And
Slava Commandos, fucking shout outs,
shout
dude,
outs
you're
to
a
you,
real one.
dude. You're a real one. You were great. You played a dirty set.
Shout outs to you for lasting Orisha music as a unnamed friend of the pod. Was giga peaking and popping off and like actually Orisha dancing for the fucking
I know
video. So
without even knowing the dance and still did it. Yeah, that was fucking
yeah,
hilarious.
shouts to you.
Shout outs to you. Fucking great DJ. Yeah,
Mhm.
level Afro Tribal house.
Yeah. If any friends of the pod have an after travel set and are doing the thing, call me specifically. I love that shit.
Yeah, specifically call
Mhm.
uh Key. Well, tell me what the lessons apart is.
Oh man, in the sense of back to basics, in the sense of shit that works no matter how camp. Um, Going back to the podcast fave, the fave of faves, the Horcrux of Horcruxes, Paul Hughes' Mastering Witchcraft. This is the formula of exorcism by salt, water, and incense.
Oh my God, this is a deep cut. Like this,
The good shit.
yeah, this takes you back to being like 16. Oh my goodness.
Mm.
All right.
Yeah, this is 18-year-old me in my dorm room throwing shit at walls and having a good time. So we
Fucking
out
give we out here.
we out here and we all have a place that we start at. We all have a place that we get to, and hopefully we never stop getting to that place,
Mm,
even after we die.
fucking
But
real.
we all got to remember where we start from, and it is a good enough place as any.
Indeed. All right, hit us.
Water and earth, where you are cast, no spell nor adverse purpose last. Not in complete accord with me, as my word surmounted be. Creature of fire, this charge I lay, no phantom in my present stay. Hear my will addressed to thee, and as my word surmounted be. The demiurge is exercised. Let him go the fuck away.
Five booms for exercising the demiurge.
Boom, 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 boom.